What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Pack-A-Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at AndyHermanNFL. Today, I'm going to continue my series breaking down the top 50 current Green Bay Packers. If you missed the first two episodes, I did them the last 2 days, and you can go and check them out, ranking players 50 through 41 and then 40 through 31. Today, we'll be going 30 through 21, and then the next 2 days, likely, unless there's some crazy breaking news I need to discuss, we'll be going over 20 through 11 and then 10 through 1 through the course of the next couple days. So I actually think today's was probably the hardest. Tomorrow's there's some difficulty in ordering as well, but I think this part of the middle of the team really, if you're doing 1 through 50, this number 21 through 30, kind of right in the middle there, is the toughest, because you've got some players on this list that are completely unproven. A lot of rookies, second-year player maybe who we haven't seen a lot of yet, and then maybe some players who are coming off some seasons where they struggled or maybe just don't have a ton of upside, and you had to kind of rank those out. But we'll kind of get into that as this list goes along today. But let's kick things off with number 30, and that's Dean Lowery, who signed that big contract extension a few years back, hasn't exactly lived up to it. If you remember at the time, they signed Lowery to the extension and then released Mike Daniels, really kind of putting Lowery in the, kind of in the spotlight as a starting defensive lineman at that time. I thought for the most part he was okay for those first couple years. I thought last year was really a struggle for Dean, mostly with just making an impact. The thing that I mentioned last year with Dean Lowery is the thing that you saw about Dean is, like, he would go in ebbs and flows and he'd have some bad games, but there'd always be a couple games where he would really impact the game in a positive way. We just didn't see that at any point last year. We never got a really good Dean Lowery game where he was able to make any sort of consistent impact or get a turnover, sack, things like that, a impactful sack, if you will. So I think he's coming off a year where he'd probably like to have back. And again, we need to step back and recognize the fact that the pandemic affected people in a variety of different ways. So if people like Dean Lowery, Preston Smith, etc., had down years a season ago, there's a lot that went into that season, right? So certainly some level of accident forgiveness there. And it's not like Lowery was terrible. And I did think he got better as the season went on, specifically as a run defender. But I think it's also fair to say that Green Bay was hoping for a little bit more from Dean Lowery when they signed him to that initial extension. Hasn't totally lived up to that deal, but also not a bad football player, somebody that you can win with along the defensive line. But as I've kind of mentioned in regards to a couple different players, maybe not a player that you're winning because of. So I still think we're probably, winding down on the Dean Lowery era in Green Bay, but I still think he has, some good things to offer this Packers defensive line, and will definitely be a player that Green Bay leans on once again this upcoming season. Number 29, and frankly, you can place him in a million different spots in this top 50, and I don't know how anyone could argue with you one way or the other. That's Jordan Love. And I think this is right about the right spot. And the reason that is there's no question. Listen, there's zero question from anyone, period, as to how much talent Jordan Love has, right? He is an immensely talented quarterback, great arm, athletic, can make every throw on the field. The only question is just how high can he reach with his ceiling? Can he get consistent accuracy throwing the football? Can he learn to read defenses? Can he put everything together and become a true, consistent starting quarterback in this league? And we just don't know that, and we're not going to know that until we see more of him. Definitely mini camps and OTAs were up and down, really one big up with a few days of struggles mixed in there. But this is still a young, progressing player. He's definitely, there's no question about it, has taken steps from year one to year two with improvement in his play, his confidence, his just overall demeanor, all of that. Just now, how high, again, can he get with reaching that ceiling? So a long way to go yet for Jordan Love, but there's no question that he remains a talented player. And even with the unknowns, right? Having a quarterback like that has that talent as a backup. This isn't a Seneca Wallace situation or things like that. If Jordan Love gets in games, he's going to be able to do some things. Does that equate to whatever record? Who the heck knows? But there's still a lot of talent there, and I think he's still deserving of being this high on this list. Number 28, another really difficult player to judge, and that's Kevin King. in general, Kevin King is a pretty solid football player. And I think what we so often get lost in the fact of is that it's really difficult to play corner. It's even more difficult to play corner across from Jair Alexander. And you normally don't have, like, most of the plays that you see the cornerback, he's getting beat, right? There are fewer and fewer interceptions. Quarterbacks are getting better and better at taking care of the football. And quarterbacks are attacking corners when they're, when they struggle in coverage, and you're seeing them getting beat. And you're not seeing them usually, unless you're watching the All-22, on all the other plays through the course of a game and what they're doing to help the team win. And I do still believe that over the course of the last couple seasons, Green Bay's been better for the most part with Kevin King on the field than without him. Now, does that mean that they shouldn't have looked to upgrade the position? And to be fair, they did with Eric Stokes, but to, look elsewhere to upgrade the position or maybe try something different there, who knows, right? Only time is going to tell. But we always judge the negative, especially at corner, and we always judge the most recent. And the most recent was an absolutely brutal game by Kevin King. Now, I'm not excusing the poor tackling. I would not have re-signed Kevin King. I've said that multiple times this offseason. I would have went in a different direction. I think Green Bay vastly overpaid market for what the market price was going for corners of his caliber this offseason. But he still has talent at corner. The issue is, of course, consistency, injuries, tackling, all of it, right? So, I know we've said every year now for the last 4 years that this is a big season for Kevin King. It remains one, but I think we know at this point what Kevin King is. There's going to be good games, there's going to be bad games, and you hope that the bad games don't strike at awful times like against Tampa Bay and the NFC Championship game. And it just sort of is what it is. I still think this is the right spot for him at number 28, but yeah, I mean, he's a difficult player to judge at this stage of his career. And this season is going to judge a lot as to whether or not Green Bay made a major mistake this offseason in bringing him back, or if they get rewarded for loyalty and sticking with him. And maybe he can have his best season in a career year and what amounts to a contract year. Only time will tell. But I think this is about the right spot for Kevin King at number 28. Number 27 is Jon Runyan Jr. Again, another very difficult player to place on this list because we've only got small bits and pieces of him on tape. What we do have is pretty good. Probably not quite as good as you remember or you may think. There's definitely still some flaws in his game where if you saw it over 1,000 snaps in a season, I think we would be talking about him a little differently. But he was a rookie. When he got in, he wasn't a major issue that the team had to change the offense or anything like that. He has some positional versatility at guard, left guard, right guard, could potentially even play some right tackle in a pinch. And I think ultimately Jon Runyan Jr. is going to be a long-term starter for the Green Bay Packers, possibly sooner rather than later. So this is definitely a player that I think the Packers are still high on, that I'm still high on, and I think is going to become, like I said, a long-term starter for Green Bay. But I still think there's some question marks, some things he needs to get better on. He was a 6th-round pick. This wasn't like a 2nd-round pick. There's some flaws in his game that, again, still need to be worked on. But I think overall the future for Jon Runyan Jr. is bright. And I think he's got, even this season, would not surprise me if he got into the starting lineup sooner rather than later and could maintain that position for, again, a significant period of time. Number 26, sticking right at that spot, is Lucas Patrick. And I think Lucas Patrick had a really nice season this past year, and I think it got overlooked a little bit. Struggled in that Tampa Bay game like every offensive lineman not named Corey Linsley did. But Patrick is one of those players that, as a GM, in a way, you're always looking to replace and improve. And Lucas Patrick is one of those players that is just, he's going to say, screw you, I'm just going to keep being better than the guys you bring in, and I'm going to keep having a roster spot, and I'm going to keep, finding ways to get on the field and contribute and be a, solid football player. I think, Brian Gutekunst did a fantastic job of signing Lucas Patrick to that extension. I think when he played, he's been nothing but a solid contributor along the offensive line. First guy out to practice, he and Corey Linsley were either first or second at every practice this past season. He's just that type of player. And there's none of the Packers, not Bakhtiari, not Jenkins, not Turner, nobody that finds work like Lucas Patrick along the offensive line and will make some absolutely epic pancakes and hits at the offensive line position. He's probably, as crazy as this may sound, the Packers' most impactful blocker regarding big takedowns and pancakes and things like that. Like, he has some blindside look for work type of hits on defenders that they certainly remember Lucas Patrick after the game. 25, Chandan Sullivan, and again, another player hard to place. Really liked what he did 2 years ago. Thought he struggled last season, had some ups and downs. I think he's going to start off in the slot. I really, really do. I think he's going to be still a contributor on this team. Sort of another player that I think, probably the coaches and GMs, would love to improve upon. But I think Sullivan still has value in this league, and I think he still has value for the Packers. And I think he's better probably than what he was given credit for. His statistics, when thrown at, were very good a season ago, even though I think he struggled at times. But you watched in that Tampa Bay game, Brady didn't hesitate to go after Sullivan or Kevin King in that game. So, that's why Eric Stokes was drafted, why Shamar Jean-Charles was drafted. They're looking to get some new blood into that secondary and see what can work. But I still expect Chandan Sullivan to have an impact on this Packers team this upcoming season. And then I'm going to finish out today with the 24, 23, 22, 21, and put them in any order you want. It's the top 4 rookies from this draft class. I've got 24, Royce Newman, 23, Josh Myers, 22, Eric Stokes, and 21, Amari Rogers. You might say, Andy, how are you putting Royce Newman ahead of Lucas Patrick and Jon Runyan Jr.? We've seen JRJ play. Lucas Patrick has played the last couple seasons. We haven't seen a snap of Royce Newman yet. And look at it this way. If you called up any NFL team and said, hey, we're going to trade you Lucas Patrick, Jon Runyan Jr., Royce Newman, you can have your pick. Who do you want? Every single one of them is going to say Royce Newman. He has the best upside of the three of them. And, even what he showed, and I know that teams weren't there, but even what he showed in minicamps and OTAs and rookie minicamp, the fact that he got in at right tackle, right guard, left guard with the number ones rotating in, it's very clear that Green Bay feels very strongly about him already. That positional versatility and the fact that, again, Green Bay has trust in him to compete for that spot already, I think is a very good sign. I was very impressed by what I saw at those initial practices out of Royce Newman. So he enters at number 24. Number 23, Josh Myers, the second round pick. Again, he's going to be the odds-on favorite to be the starting center this upcoming season. Really liked his tape overall. Definitely has some things that he needs to continue to work on. Think he's going to be an athletic upgrade, being able to get out to the second level. I think he's going to be stout enough at the point of attack. And I think, as I mentioned in my breakdown of his, I think he's going to be a better pro than he was even a college player. Number 22, Eric Stokes. I think the big thing here is, just how good can he be? How early in his career can he beat out Kevin King? Can he beat out Chandan Sullivan? How does he get in that cornerback pecking order, and what kind of impact can he have on this team? I'm slightly skeptical of Stokes in a couple different ways, but I still think, that he has a lot of value to add to this team, and hopefully he can press Kevin King for minutes or snaps sooner rather than later. Keep talking minutes. I'm too ingrained in the NBA and the Bucks right now, but certainly I'm talking about snaps here for Eric Stokes. And number 21, Amari Rogers. And the reason I have him ahead of the other rookies is I think there's a more clear path to Rogers contributing. Obviously Myers is going to contribute, but Amari Rogers, whether it's kick returner, punt returner, slot guy, gadget guy, put him in the backfield from time to time. I just think there's a lot of ways that he can get involved and help this offense sooner rather than later. I just think there's very little chance that Amari Rogers can't help you in some capacity. Maybe he doesn't reach his ceiling, but I'd be shocked if he was a bust, and I'd be shocked if he couldn't help Green Bay in a variety of different ways, both on offense and on special teams. So he's going to come in at number 21. Again, a very difficult list, I feel like, today. All of these players, Lowery, Love, King, Runyan, Patrick, Chandan Sullivan, Royce Newman, Josh Myers, Eric Stokes, Amari Rogers. Love Newman, Myers, Stokes, Rogers, 5 of the 10 we don't have any snaps on in the NFL up until this point. Then you've got your Dean Lowery's, Kevin Kings, who are coming off of, tough seasons. Chandan Sullivan, not quite as good as I think some of us expected him to have. Lucas Patrick, really nice season, but he's a low upside sort of player. There's only so high that his ceiling is going to go. And then Jon Runyan Jr., 6th round pick a season ago, who I think there's a lot of hope for, but again, very few snaps in the NFL so far. So I think all 10 of these players, very tough to rank. I certainly wouldn't have any hesitation if anyone wanted to rank them in any different order. But I think this is, again, if you look at the top 50, I think these 10 are the 10 of the tougher ones to kind of slot within that group. I think they're all within this range, but again, feel free to reorder them how you like. I don't think anyone could really argue with you one way or the other. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you as always for listening. Super appreciative of it. I'll be right back here tomorrow, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to check out Maggie Loney on today's audio version of the podcast with a special guest. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.